Jealousy. It's that little green monster hiding behind those doe eyes as you gaze lovingly to connect with your significant other. Behind the facade are cold and calculating windows to the soul. But you can't see it yet because you have been blinded to all the red flags so far. And what you saw, you chose to ignore. And so the little green monster of jealousy gets to collect evidence against you without you even knowing. That's false evidence. The things that you say and do are taken out of context as their mind collects what the eye see through the green color of jealousy. You're none the wiser. That is until you say or do something that causes their mind to open their mouth. Look out, because you have no idea what is coming next. Look out, because you have no idea what is coming next, as jealousy always lingers as a ticking time bomb waiting to go off at any moment. Oh, when it does, you have no defense, really, because anything you do or say is continued to be used against you. The little green monster behind those loving and sweet eyes are jealous. And it twists your words and your actions into something else, into someone you are not. And let me just add this, because jealousy has convinced the jealous person that you are not a good person. And so jealousy wants to mold you into the ideal person. But you cannot be that ideal person. So the jealous individual patiently waits for their opportunity to try to pick you apart again. When it does, you have no defense because anything you do or say will always be used against you. The little green monster of jealousy twists your words and your actions into something else, into someone who you aren't. The behavior they think you do is not who you are. It is as if the individual is being puppeted by their jealousy. And they have no clue as to who you are and what you stand for. And this makes any sort of reconciliation difficult. The truth is the individual has never known you. Let's get that clear right now. Their jealousy wouldn't allow them to know you. It does not matter 3 months, 3 years, 3 decades. It does not matter how long you've invested your time and effort and love and energy into the relationship. Where there is jealousy, there is no hope for real closeness. There's no hope for communication and camaraderie in any sort of relationship where jealousy is concerned. Jealousy is that wedge that divides and separates. It's that sword that slices to the quick. And it is that arrow slung aiming bullseye right to your heart. And once it is unleashed, the damage is hard to heal from. Oh yeah, our wounds heal. And the puppeted individual is also at the hands of jealousy as the puppet master. And who might that be? I'll get to that in a moment. The puppet master causes the jealous rage to be forgotten. The jealous person won't come back and apologize. No, they'll pretend that nothing has happened. And when you push for an apology, forget it, you're not going to get one. It just pushes them into a rage more and convinces them that they were right in believing that you are as bad as they believe you are. And so the cycle goes on. The green-eyed monster, when it's convenient for them, they slip back behind those alluring eyes and conveniently forget the rage and the damage they have caused. It's as if it never happened, as jealousy causes temporary amnesia, perhaps, because jealousy does not take responsibility for the wrongdoing it creates, because it's right after all. It is your responsibility, the person who jealousy rages against, to become responsible and take responsibility for the accusations that are spoken against you. And when you can't properly defend yourself, that appeases the jealousy, well, you're left to pick up the pieces, and you're even left to lick your own wounds. You are left to heal on your own without an apology and without any attempt of the jealous person to right their wrongs against you, because again, jealousy isn't wrong in their eyes. You are. Jealousy always dictates to the victim that the target is wrong and that the target deserves all the wrath coming to them. Jealousy assumes the authoritative position over you, as it assumes it knows you better than you know yourself. Really, how could someone be that arrogant? No one can step into the shoes of another. No one can live the life of another, and yet jealousy says, I know you better than you know you. I've had that said to me. Jealousy demands to be heard. Jealousy demands attention and demands that you never step out of line again, because jealousy will always be waiting. The green-eyed monster may retreat back into his hollow behind those beautiful eyes. But after its tirade, it retreats back into that ticking time bomb, just waiting for you to act again in the way that jealousy knows you will. Tick, 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 tick. Hello, my name is Shannon Gilmore, and I am doing yet another video on toxic individual behavior. And in this video, I'd like to give you some tips on how to recognize jealousy and how to navigate yourself through this as best as you can, because jealousy is a common trait among toxic individuals, including the person who suffers from narcissistic personality disorder or narcissistic personality traits. Now, a narcissist is a person who suffers from maladaptive behavior. And this is any toxic individual, whether you're a sociopath, psychopath, or you are dealing with a dark triad or comorbidity. It seems to be a pattern in toxic individuals, jealousy. And it comes from a lack of empathy. Most of us know that toxic people are hurting people, but they are not easy to spot. Oh, yes, they are. You just have to listen and observe. And most of us who are kind, caring people, we like giving people the benefit of the doubt. But listening and observing, these are key essentials to help you before you meet with the toxic person's jealous rage. The signs are there: arrogance, pride, inability to listen. They talk about themselves, they gossip about other people, they are condescending, and they know it all, and they have a huge sense of superiority even over you. They will even be so arrogant and tell you to your face that they know you better than you know you. And they will even be so arrogant to tell you, if they are of the opposite sex, that they know your sex better than you know your own womanhood. And let me tell you, their jealousy exposes them for the liars that they are. They are self-deceived. Their words will give them away all the time, but only if you are listening. And it's time to listen up, because your safety is, and you matter. You need to listen to what you are being told, because the toxic person never has your best interests at heart. You have to be vigilant, hyper vigilant in your own safety, physical and emotional well-being. The toxic individual will always reveal to you who they are with the things that they say and do. Don't allow yourself to become blindsided with your own ignorance. And I'm not saying that to hurt you. I'm speaking from experience. I am not saying anything to you that I'm not willing to say to myself. The individual who suffers from jealousy, and let me tell you, they do suffer. They are always suffering. That jealousy never goes away because the individual fails to see anything wrong with their jealousy. They literally cannot identify it as such. They believe it is truth, and so they use it like we use intuition. It is a self-guiding system to help them, keep them on the straight and narrow when it comes to people and dealing with individuals. And they believe that their jealousy is the right thing to listen to. They literally cannot see anything wrong with being jealous. And if they do, well, they don't. Because they feel justified in feeling jealous, in acting out in jealousy. But they don't just feel this way. I really believe that it's a state of being, and I'll explain this in just a bit. The jealous individual uses jealousy to their advantage. This is subconscious, of course. They're not thinking about it. They're ruled by it. And like I said, they use it like we use our intuition. But where intuition is spiritual and felt in the solar plexus, you know, your diaphragm, jealousy is within the mind, also known where your ego sits. The ego within all of us is wrong. And where we sometimes are led with our egos, as this is natural, we loving people who don't want to control anybody, when we give into our egos, afterwards we feel remorseful and we feel sadness with regret. And because of that, we can apologize. But the jealous person can't apologize because there's no remorse, there's no sadness, there's no regret, there's no inward contemplation about what they did was wrong. A jealous person is ruled by their ego in more ways than one, because jealousy combines many emotional states that give jealousy its power to overthrow your autonomous authority over you. That's ultimately what jealousy tries to do. It tries to get you to submit yourself and admit that you cannot form your own character and your own likes and your own dislikes by yourself. You need help. You need the jealous person's help to do that, because you cannot make it on your own as an individual, because you are weak and you are lowly and you just are wrong in character. You got life all wrong, and oh my gosh, you need this jealous person to set you straight. I'm being facetious here, or a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Jealousy tries to get you to acquiesce your freedoms of being you, so that you can be under the control of the one who claims to care and love you. No, it's natural to be just a little jealous, as a little dose of jealousy is healthy. It is a good thing. It can help us do better by being better. For example, if you are in a relationship and you find yourself a little jealous at the life your partner has and their accomplishments, this is nothing wrong with them. This is just a means for you to take a look at your own accomplishments and find value in yourself instead of looking at them or outside sources. Recognizing that you are not in competition with anyone is essential, as we all carry our own strengths and weaknesses, as these help us to contribute to the greater good within humanity. Sometimes you may feel jealous of your partner because they may not be giving you as much attention as you like. Well, that jealousy you feel can be used as a means to have you self-reflect inside yourself and ask you, have I been distant? Have I given my partner enough attention? Because what you give out, you get back. Have I voiced my needs to him or her? Not likely. Have I reached out and told this person that I value their time and would like to spend more time with them? Probably not. A jealous person is a competitive person. A jealous person is one who demands your time. A jealous person does not open the lines of communication and, in fact, may know how to talk, but they don't know how to communicate. And they don't find value in you, as they are jealous that you contribute so much to society, and maybe they don't, because they don't know how. Toxic jealousy. That's the jealousy from an individual who cannot do inner retrospection. A toxic jealous person cannot look at themselves because they have no love for themselves, or very, very, very little. And so it's been my experience that toxic jealousy is another narcissistic character trait. And it is formed from infancy, or somehow it is formed in the childhood home. Because toxic jealousy assumes that the other person, you, should know the needs of the toxic individual, and so nothing needs to be said. We, their targets, should already know. It's as if you are their mind reader. Now, if you know anything about narcissism, it is that narcissistic people, or people who show narcissistic qualities consistently, they expect you to know their needs before they have to voice it. They expect you to read their minds, know what they're going to do before they do it, know what they're going to say before they say it. If you don't have an expectation of their needs and know what they need and know what they want before they have to voice it, then in their minds it means that you don't give an SHIT about them. Jealousy takes that as a deep wound, as a sign of dismissal and respect of them. If in your relationship they ever have to get to the point where the jealous person has to voice their needs to you, this signifies failure on your part. And you are in the wrong. And you are not as attentive to their needs as you should be, or as they need you to be. So therefore, you must be giving your attention to some other person. The unspoken rule is, if you have to be told what their needs are, then that makes you the problem, and the problem needs to be put in her or his place. Pronto. person who gives themselves over to jealousy feels justified in acting out their frustration on you and feels justified in blaming you as you are their target of blame, as their jealousy forces them to assume it is all your fault. If you only knew your role in the relationship, they would not have to act this way and tell you in their jealous tirade. That's the only form of communication you are going to get. If you don't know where you stand in a relationship, the jealousy will tell you exactly where you stand. If you are trying to get the individual to help you come together in the relationship and form the boundaries of the relationship, and they dismiss that and they refuse to talk about it, it will come out in their jealous tirade. Because a jealous person or a toxic person does not want to collaborate with you, and they don't want to come together with a meeting of the minds and have you state your needs and they state their needs. Because, for one thing, if you state your needs and you get ignored, that tells you that they have no intention of fulfilling your needs because they can't. They're in this relationship for themselves, not for you. A healthy relationship is to have two people come together and help each other become better people. Yes, at times couples argue, and that can be healthy because that challenging portion of the relationship can actually help bring out some things in you that you cannot yet see that need to be dealt with. So two healthy people coming together, they work together. But in a toxic relationship, it's always one-sided. And when jealousy rears its ugly head, you will then know the boundaries and parameters of the relationship. And those boundaries and parameters have nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with control, as the jealous person wants you to cater to them. When you make demands or when you ask for your needs to be fulfilled, you are seen as being demanding and controlling, and they will not ever allow themselves to be controlled. It isn't controlling nature to want your needs met. It isn't controlling to want to discuss the parameters of the relationship and work together in a relationship. It's not control. It's called compromise. There's a difference. But the toxic person doesn't know that. When a jealous person rages at you, they feel justified. They feel justified in acting out their frustration on you as they assume the problem that and the tension between the two of you is all your fault. If you only knew the role of the relationship, they wouldn't have to act this way. So you trigger them. By you being nice and kind, triggers them into negative reactions. I want to say it's not your fault for not knowing their needs. And I'm going to say this, you cannot convince them or get them to see they are wrong in their assumption of you. See, as intuition is a hidden knowing, jealousy assumes that you should have that hidden knowing about their needs, but the ego is in the mind, intuition is in the spiritual portion in your solar plexus. You can never know what a jealous person is thinking except when you understand the nature of jealousy. You can better see it. You can better jump out ahead of it to maybe anticipate what they might say or do next. But you'll never know, because spiritually, a jealous person is cut off from you because they're in their head, they're in their ego, they're serving flesh, and they don't know it. The ego is cut off from anything spiritual, even God. God says, do not sin in your anger. Anger is an abomination to the Lord. He abhors anger. Jealousy is a form of anger. It is the sin in anger. And when someone is cut off from their spirit, from the love center, you can't get a read on their spirit if their spirit is cut off from you, let alone cut off from themselves. Now, couples who love each other do tend to read each other's thoughts over a period of time. I've had this done with my best friends. My best friend and I, we will finish each other's sentences and know what each other is thinking. That's because the more you are around with somebody and you relate to them, and you love them and they love you, the more you are in tune to their needs, you're in tune to their thoughts, you're in tune to their sense of feelings and finish their sentences because you are in tune spiritually. You're not here. You're not in the ego. You're in your heart center out of giving spiritually and love. There's a vulnerability there that you just let the person be them and they let you be you, and you guys accept each other. That's what love is all about, acceptance. And accepting each other, flaws and all, with no judgments. Jealousy comes from judgment, and it's rooted in judging. The jealous person judges themselves and they project that judgment onto you. Jealousy desires that connectiveness in the spiritual. And they desire this type of knowing, but this knowing comes from somewhere that they can't access because it comes from being in connectedness together in love. Jealousy is not love. It isn't. TV shows and movies have romanticized jealousy, but it's not. Jealousy is abusive. It is abuse. Jealousy wants you to cater to the individual. Jealousy needs to be jealousy needs to be catered to. The jealous person needs to be the center of your attention, as this is what they crave, and they go about doing this by forcing you into compliance, to have you make yourself the center of their attention. Jealousy has nothing to do with love, dear friend. It is not rooted in the heart center. It is not connected to the solar plexus to give you a knowing that you know what you know, what you know. It is rooted in the mind, which is ego, and the ego is reactionary. Jealousy is cut off from anything spiritual, even God, because jealousy is that sinful anger that God abhors. See, the spirit is giving, ego is taking. The spirit is charitable, the ego is demanding. The ego is everything that spirit is opposite to. Or, yeah. Have you ever noticed that a jealous person wants to isolate and separate you from your friends and family? That's not what love does. This is because jealousy has isolated and separated the jealous individual from knowing who they truly are spiritually. Spiritually, the jealous person is cut off from love and cut off from the spirit connectedness that love provides. The jealous person did not get love. The love that they needed, the nurturing, the guidance, the kindness in their youth. Love is spiritual and not rooted in the ego. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I need to have this made understood. Because we are seeing a progression, an uptick in what people call narcissistic behavior. We are seeing evil behavior coming out into the open. And after our time of COVID lockdown and the world corrects itself, we are going to have to deal with challenging people. This is going to be the way of things. And either we can help to change them through our attitudes and just by being ambassadors for Jesus, by being the love beings that we are meant to be, we can influence people that way, or we won't be able to influence people that way. But it's important to understand this now, because moving forward in what is yet to come and for our future generations, we have to do better by being better, because the way we were, looking hindsight, the way we were taught, the way our parents raised us, they did the best that they could, but now we can do better. And that's why we're here. Love is peaceful, and a jealous person cannot find inner peace through any sort of connectedness with God, because they are disconnected from God. They may believe that God exists, but they don't believe in God because they're not willing to follow his precepts or even learn about him. Because jealousy says that the ego is right and love is wrong. Until the jealous person decides that jealousy is not working in their favor anymore, they will not discover, sorry, there's a glare on my glasses. They will not discover inner peace and inner harmony within themselves. Until the jealous person finally takes on the responsibility for their own behavior and stops putting it on other people, and until they admit that their jealous ways are wrong, they will never be able to find connections with people that they seek, that they desire. Most people do not see that their jealous ways are harmful and hurt others, as jealousy is separating. And this is because jealousy lacks empathy. I have a memory of meeting a famous person when I was 5 years old. His name was Eric Estrada. He played a character on a famous television show in the 70s or early 80s called Chips. Now, Eric Estrada played a character named Poncharelli, or Poncharello, I'm not sure, but they called him Ponch for short. And back in the day, he was considered the heartthrob of the show. I personally was only 5 at the time, but I loved his smile. It was white and bright, and he had a shiny demeanor about him. And when I watched the show, he was so nice and kind on the show. He plays the typical male character that nurtures and loves a woman. And I really thought that this person was like this in real life. And he is. I was drawn to his kind nature. My sister, who is 10 years older than me, well, we both had an opportunity to meet Eric at a venue or event in our home. We stood in line to wait our turn to get his autograph. And when we were face to face with him, He greeted us with his signature smile. Oh, wow. I was enamored. He was amazing. I still think he's amazing. I still hold on to that childhood crush. I wanted to live at his house and play with his children. I wanted him to be my dad. That's seriously what I was thinking. I didn't have a dad or a male figure in my life at the time, and this encounter was so amazing. He signed my sister's promotional picture she held in her hand, but I didn't have a promotional picture for him to sign. So what he did, he leaned over the table and he gave me a kiss on my cheek. Wow! I got a kiss from my dad! Wow! That was the best moment ever. That moment was when my sister also became jealous of me. I'm sure she would have rather have had that kiss on the cheek than have her autograph. That kiss in her mind probably said that he liked me over her. But I was only 5. I wasn't thinking like that. All I knew is that I felt special that day, like I was wanted and I mattered. Eric changed my life that day because he gave me hope and helped me to recognize that the value I carried within myself is all that I need. I don't need the accolades of a father figure. But after that day, life at home, well, it was tumultuous to begin with. It was toxic. But after that day, oh, my sister and I grew even more distant. She began to resent me, and that resentment grew to a bitterness that cannot be defined. She saw me differently after that and began to treat me harshly and cruelly. My sister could not see the situation through the eyes of an adult, through Mr. Estrada's sympathy and empathetic nature for me, as he didn't want me to walk away from that situation empty-handed. His kind gesture meant the world to me, but she couldn't be happy for me. But it didn't mean the world to me in the way that anyone else would think. My sister looked at her idol through the eyes of a crush. She took the exchange he and I had as something personal and began to punish me for it as if it was my fault. Her jealousy lied to her, as her jealousy told her she could have had what she wanted if I wasn't there. She could have gotten that kiss on the cheek to validate her infatuation if I hadn't been the little sister tag-along. After that, she resented and punished me in secret when our mom wasn't around. And oh boy, did I get it when my mom told her to take me along with her. Oh, she hated me tagging along with her after that situation with Mr. Estrada. Something about human nature is empathy meets empathy. Jealousy is envious of empathy, as love and reciprocation is natural. It's naturally given when empathy is given. Jealousy cannot have that heart connection, and so it uses other parts of the ego to find justification and to have other people give, not out of willingness, as giving from the heart is natural. No, jealousy forces one into compliance. Give to me or I'll hate you. Do for me or I'll punish you. Pay attention to me or I'll ignore you. Jealousy instills fear through control, because jealousy is rooted in fear. Many people assume that the opposite of love is hate. It's actually fear. Hate comes from fear. Hate comes from jealousy. Jealousy comes from insecurity and not knowing oneself to love oneself, because jealousy lacks love. Jealousy is rooted in the feeling of being less than and not measuring up. This lack of self-esteem is debilitating for the jealous person, as it is debilitating for the people that are in the company of the jealous person. And I just want to say in this video that I am not trying to pick apart the person who has jealousy. Okay, I want to be kind here, because a jealous person, whether they have narcissistic qualities or not, they have the potential to change. They are wounded people who are victims from traumas of their past, and they're trauma bonded to their past, where that trauma bonding has solidified in their character to cause them to stay in the fight and flight mode. We have 3 areas of our brain, and the inner brain is, science says it's the oldest brain. Well, I don't know where they get that idea, but I believe it's where instinct is, the unrighteous instinct to survive. It's rooted in fear. Science calls it the reptilian brain. Fight or flight, that's fear-based projections. So understanding where the jealous person is coming from can help protect yourself and can help you do something about the situation if you find yourself in a situation that is, excuse me, at the mercy of a jealous person. This video is not to instill hate. I don't want you to hate even the narcissist. I don't want you to hate a toxic person. That's not who we are. We are here to love, but love sometimes means that we have to allow the person to suffer in their own suffering, in their own pain, and jealousy is a suffering. We cannot take that suffering away from the jealous person. We cannot do better by being better. We cannot love on them. We cannot love them more. We cannot empathize or sympathize or show more compassion to get them to change. We had to change on our own. We had to change our behavior on our own. We took the time to read the Bible and alter our character. The jealous person, the narcissist, the toxic person, the psychopath, the sociopath, if those 2 people can change, they have to want it bad enough to change. And they have to see that they need changing. So I'm asking you in this video right now, as much as it may feel validating for you to pick apart their flaws, to judge these flaws, I would like you to use this video to see these flaws, to help you to stay away from entering into a relationship with a toxic person, because a toxic person is unevenly yoked to you. Jealous person, they cannot love. You can love. That's not a meeting of the minds there, or a meeting of the hearts. Love is spiritual. Jealousy is in the flesh, in the mind, in the ego. So you are becoming unevenly yoked, forming unevenly yoked relationships. And what's going to happen? The stronger personality wins out, and God says, corrupt character corrupts moral character. It isn't the other way around. And what happens is, because we who are loving are so willing to give, we are so willing to submit. That's what happens. When you enter into an unevenly yoked relationship, you end up submitting yourself to them, and they end up ruling over you. So that's just something to keep in mind. This is not a video to pick apart the jealous person or the toxic individual. We have all toxic characteristics that we need to root out of. This is just to help you understand how the hurting individual hurts others, and how you can, if you can't do anything in your own character by the way of loving somebody enough, caring for them enough, understanding them enough, you can't help them in that capacity. They have to help themselves. This is where the God helps those who help themselves apply. This is only where it applies. God helps those who help themselves, who love themselves enough to say, okay, I've got some flaws in me. I need to freaking change because I've left a wake of terrible burned bridges and left, terrible feelings in the relationships of my past. Maybe it was partly their fault, but I'm willing to look at my responsibility. That is something that we all have to do in ourselves. We have to take responsibility for our own actions and our own reactions, and a jealous person can't do that. Until they do, they will remain a hurting individual. It is not our place to love them enough, throw them enough compassion. Yes, we throw them mercy, but we don't acquiesce to them. Does Jesus acquiesce to us? Does he submit to us in the way of we go in prayer and oh God, why did you do this? No, that prayer may be heard, but it's never answered. When we submit ourselves to God and admit our wrongdoing and confess our sins to him, then he listens. A toxic individual needs to confess their sins to themselves, to get honest with themselves, so that they can get honest with God ultimately. But until they get honest with themselves, until they start seeing the patterns of their own bad behavior, they won't change. And so the only thing that you can do, and if you take anything out of this video, take this. Pray for them in love. Respect the lessons that you gained from these toxic relationships. Understand that these toxic relationships were for you to challenge you in your own wayward behavior, to show you that without love, this will be who you will become. So don't allow your heart to become hardened. Don't allow your heart to be solidified in these evil, sinful ways. Use these ways that you see from the jealous person or the toxic individual. Use their ways as a means to help you grow. And when you do that, you can better understand them. You can better respect and understand the process, and the better you can love them. Not physically, but spiritually, by praying for them out of honor for God. Jealousy keeps one stuck in their own head, and jealousy cuts the individual off from love and people who do care, because jealousy cannot recognize love and affection. Jealousy is the opposite of love because it's rooted in fear. A jealous person only recognizes attention. The Bible talks about children gaining attention. Didn't we play the lyre for you? Didn't we do this for you? Didn't we do that for you? Oh, and children, they love to get attention. If you ignore them, they take that as a wound to their heart. So a jealous person still has some infantile behavior that they need to recognize and root out. If the toxic person is getting your attention, then they are self-satisfied. They feel good about themselves. Jealousy looks to other people for self-adulation and self-definition. The jealous person looks outwardly instead of inwardly for their value and worth. A jealous person tries to find outside sources to make them happy and secure, and this never works. Again, jealousy is rooted in fear. It does not trust, it boasts, it keeps record of wrongs, it delights in evil, it is vengeful. It is a falsehood that is believed as truth. Jealousy is like the child who tells tall tales and tries to convince other people that those stories are true. Jealousy delights in fictitious thoughts and behavior. It believes the lies as truth. It gives up quickly and does not perceive and does not persevere, as jealousy is willing to give up and sever relationships and all ties with people. Jealousy does not hope. It is hopeless, and it is not kind. It is not patient. It is rude. Jealousy, as you see in these descriptions, as with any other parts of the ego that's rooted in the mind, is the opposite of love. So what is love? It's defined as 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Love always hopes, always trusts, always perseveres. Love never fails. Wow, this is the opposite of jealousy, don't you think? There is freedom in love. There is bondage in jealousy. The jealous person is in bondage and they put you in bondage when you have already come out of bondage. Why do you want to put yourself back into it? Love is spiritual, and it's not just a state of feeling, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8. It is a state of being. It is our character. And love is fear's opposite. And where there is jealousy, there is fear. And jealousy can be a state of feeling, but it is also a state of being. And when it's extremely toxic, that's where it's a state of being. Fear is rooted in rejection. Fear is rooted in abandonment, and that's where jealousy comes from. Now, we all face rejection. This is something within all of us, and I discussed this in one of my YouTube channels, and I discussed this in my YouTube videos entitled Mommy Dearest 1, 2, and 3. The words of Jesus are this, that we are not given a spirit of fear, but one of sound mind and in health and in truth. Fear isn't truthful. Fear is the opposite of love, and it serves the flesh that the enemy has jurisdiction over. The enemy is our ego. The ego cannot tap into the heart center. The ego is necessary, as ego is rooted in survival, and it's what is used in our youth to help us to get through the day. And the enemy pits our souls against ourselves as we try our best to get along in life and with others. Ego is necessary, but you can use it for your gain. Ego is rooted in self-preservation. Oh, it's healthy to want to live. It is healthy to want to make it on your own. But fear dictates that one must do everything on their own. One doesn't need God or others to rely on. Jealousy causes one to separate themselves from others, as jealousy prevents one from trusting. When a jealous person disrespects you, they do not trust you as they cannot trust you. To trust you means to place their self-worth in your responsibility. And for them, that would mean disaster, because they did that in their youth or somehow in a repeated pattern, and it hurt them dearly. Love is giving and it is protecting. Love just is. It cannot be any other way. God's character of love does not change. It cannot. This is the character that we are to emulate. We are not to change. When we give love to one, we give love to all. When we give love to our neighbor, we are giving love to ourselves. Love is equal. It has no favorites. Love gives to men, women, and children, but jealousy dictates to otherwise. Jealousy says you have to be selective with your kindness and caring. You have to put me, the jealous person, first before everybody else, before anybody who is suffering. Fear is undulating. It changes with the situation. Even though it's consistent in its behavior, it changes, and that is what catches unsuspecting people like us off guard. We who are consistent in our behavior do not suspect that others might not feel about us equally as we do about them. And that's why it's important to be suspicious or watch out for red flags. Being suspicious and watching out for red flags is not toxic when we are looking for someone's spiritual fruit. If someone is rooted in their ego, they have no spiritual fruit, so we automatically know who they are. Because jealousy is rooted in ego, ego is rooted in emotion. Jealousy begins as a state of feeling. When jealousy is recognized as a state of feeling, well, one is able to recognize and see their error and alter their behavior to more beneficial feelings and mindsets. But when a state of feeling is recognized, okay, one can change. If they really put their heart and soul to it, they have to be dedicated in becoming the change. And I share this with you in my YouTube videos, how actually breathing exercises helps us to disengage the brain, the ego, and we can actually lead our thoughts and behaviors with our heart, just through simple breathing exercises. When you are angry or heated or jealous, take the time to just breathe. Do that for 5 to 10 minutes. You're inhaling deeply, holding it for 2 to 4 seconds, and then slowly exhaling. And you will see how calming that is. You can do that even when you need to fall asleep and you suffer from insomnia. This is because breathing, most times when we are tense, you will see a jealous person breathe from their chest. A toxic person breathes shallow. But when you are rooted in your heart, you use your stomach, your diaphragm, and your whole chest cavity to breathe. It's deep. It engages your lungs and helps to bring oxygen to your brain and oxygen to your whole being. When a person is agitated, angry, or jealous, they cut off their breathing and they breathe in their chest, and so they're not giving proper oxygen to all their being. And the oxygen just goes to their major organs. Our hearts have neurons like the brain, and therefore show us that our hearts have the ability to think. This is scientific fact now. We have the ability to shut off our egos. We always have. We just were never told this. We can allow our hearts to think through the perspective of love. When we allow our hearts to guide us, there is an intuitive aspect that does not judge, but gives us a knowing about what is true and beneficial for us. Jealousy doesn't know what truth is. It assumes it knows truth and takes that assumption based on what they assume to be true, and this forms a conviction. And let me say this, a person who is jealous, don't ever assume that you are forgiven. A toxic person will never forgive you. They will hold on to that initial wrongdoing, and they will build upon it over days, weeks, months, and years. And when you mess up in their eyes again, they will revert back to that initial feigned or perceived wrongdoing that they believe you committed against them, and they will build upon that and they will throw it back in your face. I knew you were a cheater. I knew it from the get-go. I was so stupid to fall in love with you. I was so stupid to move in with you. What was I thinking? I knew you cheated. And you're like, no, I didn't. I just went out with friends. Or, no, I didn't. I just had a meeting, a dinner meeting. And my bosses just happened to be male. I would have invited you, but I can't invite you to a dinner meeting for work. But your significant other won't believe you. Some very loving people who only have had the jealous person's best interest at heart, we will be perceived as evil. And that is because the fear is of the ego, and the ego fights to stay alive. And because fear is love's opposite, love knows that fear is evil. Fear thinks the same way about love. I want to share a personal story with you. For me, it's no coincidence that I'm doing this video for you, because God shares with me practical applications in life, and we're all in this to learn together and help each other. And Friday morning, I went for a walk and I did some work with God on my own ego. He showed me that my ego deceived me. My ego was causing me to fear in a certain area of my life. And my ego was lying to me, and I was believing that lie because based on what I saw around me. And as soon as I understood this, I felt that millstone tied around my neck lift. I felt that weight gone. However, that evening, the enemy came back to punish me, as the enemy, through someone else's ego, challenged me with an assumption about me that was false. And their ego was lying to them about me. And that is what jealousy does. Jealousy is the child of the great deceiver, the murderer. Fear, jealousy, destroys and murders relationships and kills partnerships that could have a very beneficial and positive result without the green-eyed monster afoot. So what do you do when you're faced with somebody's jealousy? Stay calm. God says don't resist an evil person. Don't argue with a fool. And do not take responsibility of their assumption, their lies about you. You can say, well, I guess I'm going to have to accept your faulty perception of me. Don't take what they say personal. Don't return their emotional tirade with any sort of emotion. State your facts calmly, to the point, without emotion. And do not take on the assumptions of the accusations, as this then makes you the liar to your truth. Do not allow yourself to falsely confess. Do not allow yourself to acquiesce and bow down. Stand your ground, either in silence or state the facts as simply as you can. Recall them. Don't lend yourself to explanation, as this will only get you into trouble, as the jealous person will further twist your words into something that they are not. Leave the situation if you can. And I say I would really like to talk about. Tell them, I would really like to talk to you about this, but I feel now is not the time. Can we revisit this conversation when we both are more calm? As I feel that would be better for both of us, as I value your input. But I would like to collaborate with you on this in a way that is beneficial without our anger getting in the way. Sometimes the jealous person will accept that, but a toxic individual will just see you as biding time to get away. And they will not let you leave the argument. Instead, they will demand an answer. If you answer, you are guilty. And if you do not answer, you are even more guilty. You cannot win. You can only hold onto your dignity and character, as jealousy has you judged before you are guilty. You are judged before you can prove your innocence. Do your best not to argue, and do not allow yourself to be triggered. Breathe and remain calm. When you're able to walk away, or even after the argument, This is your time to really take the time to really assess if this is a situation or relationship that you want to continue, and if it's even worth salvaging. Because what you are seeing now is what is going to be set up for your future. And that future will get worse and worse and worse. If you are on the receiving end of someone's jealousy and they do not see that they are wrong and they do not apologize or do their best to help heal the relationship and make amends, while instead they make demands on you and ultimatums such as, oh, we can get back together, but you have to do this. Or I'm willing to give you a chance, but, or you have to earn back my trust. These are major red flags that you will only be put on the hot seat once again as this jealous person sees your actions as the trigger for their reason to act out in their jealousy. Anyone who does not take responsibility for their actions and reactions and instead blames you, this is a major red flag that you are setting yourself up for danger. Key word phrases to watch out for. I wouldn't have said that if you wouldn't have done that. Or this wouldn't be happening if you only did this. This is your fault because you shouldn't have done that. You did this. You're responsible for this fight. Now, people are allowed to make mistakes. To err is human. But in the eyes of a jealous person, the individual whom they set their rage against isn't allowed to make mistakes. Oh no. The individual should know things that aren't spoken about, as there needs to be no dialogue, no set parameters, as it is the victim's responsibility or the target's responsibility to know ahead of time and conduct themselves accordingly with no wiggle room. Now, there are varying degrees of jealousy, but when it's a state of being, it usually can't be rectified because the jealous person cannot find ways to cope. Reassurance, compassion, kindness doesn't work. Now, if it's mild, yes, couples can heal from mild jealousy. But the dangerous thing about jealousy is that you're always on the hot seat and you never know when it's coming. You never know from one day to the next. You could wake up and your partner could be in a jealous rage and you didn't know what you did. You could have spoken in your sleep, or you could have accidentally elbowed them in the ribs, and they're jealous and they'll rage at you. Any little thing can set the temper off in a jealous person, and you're left to walk on eggshells. Because jealousy is controlling. The person is controlled by jealousy as jealousy tries to control you. You are controlled to become someone you're not. You are controlled to become someone suited to the jealous person. And when they get tired of you because you are no longer exciting, as you are now considered boring, because the excitement and the challenge was getting you to change and alter your ways, and so you'd be combative to that, and there was a transition phase of you stepping out of your character and molding yourself into what they wanted you. That's what the jealous person finds exciting. But once you become who they want you to be, I don't want that toy anymore. It's got a scratch on it. It's boring. I'm done with it. They will cast you aside. Until this happens, the controlling nature can get so out of hand that it's verbally abusive and physically violent. Jealousy should not be put up with by any means. In a relationship, if it's not addressed right away, it will only become a bigger issue in the future. With someone who has jealousy issues is someone who is dealing with feelings of insecurity and inadequacy. Their jealousy is not your fault. You should never allow yourself to take responsibility for it, as the responsibility falls on them. We are all responsible for our own actions and reactions in life, and no one should be made responsible for the actions that you actively choose to make. If you are dealing with a Jealous husband, a wife, a parent, a friend, consider whether it is in your best interest to consider that relationship. In the case of solidified relationships, meaning where there is marriage or a commitment and children involved, please seek counseling for yourself to find ways to cope with the jealousy and ask if your partner would want to accompany you in counseling. Try to talk to your partner about their jealousy. Reassure them that you are not here to judge or harm them and that you understand them. But be firm and be fair. Do not reward their bad behavior. Set boundaries and tell them that their behavior is unacceptable. Address that the jealousy is harming the dynamic of the relationship and it cannot and will not be tolerated. Do not reward a person for their bad behavior, as I said, because seeking out and making attempts for reconciliation when they are not willing to recognize and take responsibility for their wrongdoing is what is a reward to them. You are giving them attention, and attention is all what jealousy desires. If you get away with just having a heated argument when someone is jealous of you, count yourself lucky, because once you are married to a jealous person or in a committed relationship that it's not easy to get out of, they really do believe that they own you, and their rage will be taken out on you, and it will take its toll on you, both verbally and physically. Jealousy is no laughing matter. It is dangerous. It is dangerous, and it should never be minimized. You are not to be minimized. You have accomplishments. You have set goals for yourself. You have made great strides and achievements in yourself. You should never let someone allow you to compromise and dismiss you. Now, I hope I have given you some deep thoughts about jealousy for you to think about, because this is a common trait among narcissists and hurting people. Please do not assume that just because a person is jealous that they are a narcissist, but be aware that narcissism carries the trait of jealousy. The more you are able to recognize toxic traits, the better you will be able to identify and not look over those red flags. Take care of yourself. Hold you to your boundaries and hold others to your boundaries by loving yourself enough to not be bullied and pushed into doing something or becoming someone that you are not and never were meant to be. You are a person of value and worth, and those who suffer from jealousy cannot see your value and worth because they cannot see the value and worth in themselves. They see you as competition, and they belittle you to make themselves feel better. This is called leveling, and the more you are seen as competition, as you better yourself and hone in on your skills, the worse their jealousy becomes, because these jealous people are stagnant people. There's no inner growth. They feel they don't have to be better. They don't feel like they need to work on themselves because they're the best of the best. The takeaway from this video is to share with you that you are worthy and you are special. You do not deserve any sort of maltreatment. No one has the right to abuse you. No one has the right to accuse you. No one has the right to judge you. You do not deserve their maltreatment of you. Do not give in to it, and you do not receive it by taking responsibility for it. Don't own it. Become aware that some people are hurting inside and do not know how to help themselves. You are not the one to help them by suffering through their abuse. That's not help. You deserve to be treated well. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to find love, and you will. By loving yourself to stay away from abusive relationships shows that you are capable of finding love. Love yourself and love will find you. That's a certainty. Now, I made this video out of personal experience, historical and very recent. I am convinced that jealousy is most often always incurable. There are varying intensities of jealousy, that is certain. And the mildest form can be worked with if the jealous individual is willing to look at themselves, to become honest and vulnerable with themselves and with you. Many people suggest that jealousy comes from trust issues. And yes, but it goes deeper than that. The jealous person suffers from feelings deeply rooted with themselves, and the more intense the jealousy, the deeper the root. The jealousy comes from a deep sense of inadequacy and insecurity. The jealous person does not know themselves to give of themselves to a relationship entirety. And so you may find that the jealous person is off-putting at times, as they have no filter, as the things that they say to you are rude, and they are controlling in nature. And this is just outside of their jealous rage. So if someone comes to you and says, talks down to you, talks at you, and belittles your efforts in life, belittles your career, or says you're a fool because you're not acting this way, because they are assuming that they know the best way to approach a situation, and they tell you, oh, you're not fashionable enough. You should buy a new coat, or you should go buy a new car. You should put you should tint your windows. You should trade your car in because, you know, this is a low status car. Well, I like my car. Well, you should trade it in. You could do better. You know, you need power windows and heated seats. No, I don't. Well, yes, you do. I know what's best for you. That's their attitude. So that's just something to keep in mind, because outside of the jealousy, there is a sense of superiority and control in the conversation. It's just sometimes we like to overlook these patterns of control because we want to keep the peace. And so a jealous person, by nature, they don't have a filter. They're not careful with the things that they say. They don't care if they hurt your feelings. And to recap, a jealous person is rooted in their ego. Their jealousy is their truth. And so when they have no filter on the things that they say to you in just everyday conversation, it's their ego speaking. And their jealousy is coming out, but you can't recognize it as such. It's controlling nature. When someone tells you to cut your hair, dye your hair, change your hairstyle because they prefer you this way, that's controlling nature. But it comes across as a suggestion. That suggestion is a mild form of control. And when you don't follow through, they will say some other things and not filter what they say, because they have no empathy and compassion. They have no desire to have you think for yourself. They claim to know what's best for you. You don't know fashion. You don't know hairstyles. You don't know makeup. You don't know how to purchase a car. You don't know how to buy the right foods. So you need their help. Well, I've been getting along fine on my own and since before I met you. So how is it that when I met you, my life is falling apart and I don't know how to clothe and feed myself, and I don't know how to choose the proper foods, and I don't know how to choose the proper car? Suddenly you come into my life and my life is all wrong according to your standards? It's because the person wants to control you. So don't overlook these red flags and just common everyday conversation outside of the jealous fighting. So a jealous person will keep the argument going for days, even if you yourself have come to terms with the argument. The jealous person is still fuming inside. And so when they approach you a couple of days later after an argument, please take caution, because if you do not do what they ask or what they desire or what they demand, they will take that as a slight and they will retreat back into the initial argument and throw all of that in your face to get you to do what they want. They are bullying you and trying to guilt trip you or gaslight you into compromising. So in closing, if you are watching this video, you might be wanting more information on jealousy And maybe you want to understand your partner as you want to help them. That's admirable. But just know that you can't help them in the ways that you want to help. As much as you love them, you have to ask yourself, are their actions loving towards you? A jealous person can't love themselves, so how can they love you in the way that you need? They can't. You cannot love them enough or understand them enough. You can't be patient enough, and you cannot talk to them enough to get them to see reason. That has to come from within. You are dealing with something that is solidified or solidifying within. God calls this a hardening of the heart. We as Christians are to circumcise our hearts. That is to cut off the foreskin of sin, the ego, so that love remains. Love from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8. This is the character of Christ. A jealous person has the character of the enemy. If you really were to be honest with yourself about it, and if you're in love with the enemy, you're unevenly yoked, and the enemy is going to change you to create you to be a person more like them. Someone who is against God, someone who is against love, someone who worships the jealous person and puts the jealous person first before God. The put downs, the hidden comments, the arrogance, the debasing, the devaluating, the stonewalling, you know the narcissistic traits. And you know the everyday conversation. You don't need jealousy to rear its ugly head to know and recognize a jealous person. You can go back and see the red flags that have been ignored. That's okay. We all do this because we are kind, loving people, and we want to give people the benefit of the doubt and give them a chance, and that's okay. This is not a bad thing. You are not wrong in caring. They are wrong for using you to suit their own needs that can only be fulfilled with them. And where you are wrong is to allow this relationship to keep devaluing you and debasing you. You have to put a stop to it. You have to hold yourself to boundaries and hold others to your boundaries that you set. And if they disrespect you, they do not have license to be in your company. They do not get to have jurisdiction in your company and share themselves with you if they are going to disrespect you. You can only do what you need to do for you. Only you know what you should do. I will never tell you otherwise. However, the jealousy will only escalate if the individual refuses to address their problem. The jealous person has to take responsibility for their wrongdoing. Saying sorry is not going to cut it. Some of them do say sorry, but actions speak louder than words. If they do not have a follow through in action and try to make it up with you over a period of time, not just a period of 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 3 weeks, they have to show consistently that they really do love you and that they are making an effort to change. You are not wrong in caring. And jealousy is on them. It's their problem, not yours. You did nothing wrong. I assure you of that. You did nothing to provoke their jealousy, and their jealousy and false assumptions of you is not your fault, ever. Now, if you need to watch this video again, I encourage you to do so and take notes because I've said a lot, and I know I may have sounded repeating sometimes, but this is important to remember. Where jealousy comes from is from the mind, the ego. The ego is rooted in emotion. We cannot make valuable decisions when we make them based on fear, and jealousy is rooted in fear. This is opposite of love. A jealous person is unloving to themselves, and when you can identify jealousy, you can identify other toxic markers of the individual that help you make a decision that I invite you to really consider. If the jealousy is not mild, and if you are unable to address the issue because the jealous person is not yet ready to admit that they are wrong, consider that the jealousy will only escalate. Not only that, this will be a pattern of the ways to come for the rest of your relationship with them. If you will be made to feel like you are walking on eggshells day after day, moment by moment. This will lead you into depression. This will lead you into feeling insecure. This devaluing is debasing, and it strives to take away the love that you have for yourself. You will be isolated from your friends and family, and your life will no longer be your own because you will be isolated from the person that you once were. And coming out of a jealous relationship when you are like that, undoing the trauma bonding, undoing the brainwashing, the cognitive dissonance, it takes years to recover from, because you have to build yourself back from a person that you once knew but no longer recognize. Speaking from experience. The jealous person will control you. They will control your comings and goings. They may control your finances, allow you to use the car only on specific days or in emergencies. They will have you have them become your end all be all. This is not love. This is control. This is bowing down to the enemy and making that person your center of attention. This is what it means to worship. They may even take away your right to have a relationship with God, belittling your faith and convincing you that their belief is right. Jealousy is a means to gain a sense of entitlement, as it's a sense of superiority. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? Jealousy has you guilty even though you can prove your innocence. No, my friend, please consider what you are getting yourself into, please. If you are in deep already, please talk to somebody. You can always talk to me on social media, links found on the banner of my YouTube page, and I will do my best to get you the help that you need. And I will talk to you as much as you need. You are not alone. God is with you, and use your system of support to help you. I know it's hard to make a decision you don't want to make, and I know you might be feeling sheepish and feeling a little bit embarrassed and humble, but it's okay. There are many of us who have been through this before. You're not alone, and we're here to help you. It is not a good feeling to let go of someone you love. Please do not have the love that you have for them over the love that you have for yourself. Recognize cognitive dissonance, as this might be what is causing you that anxiety and uncomfortable feeling within you that is holding you to staying in indecision. A jealous person will not let you go. Oh, they may for a time. However, they will come back as their anger dissipates and their memory fades on how bad their jealousy raged with you. Love yourself enough to walk away. You do not deserve to stay in an abusive relationship. This is not an act of selflessness. You are not a martyr to love. And God does not want you to be abused and controlled. He wants you free. And you will not change the individual. They will only end up changing you. Let them choose jealousy over love. That is their cross to bear. They do not know how to love. They only know control through jealousy. This is their truth, and they are welcome to it, but it's not yours. Your truth is rooted in the opposite, love. How can they love you if they have a false version of you stuck in their ego? They don't want to know you. They never intended to know you. They just wanted to know about you in the beginning of the relationship, so they knew what they could change and knew what they wanted to change about you. How is that going to work out for you when you stay in the relationship? If you allow them to have a false sense of reality that is not your reality. Do you really want to live in that ticking time zone? Do you really want to live on eggshells? Do you really want to live by their rules? A jealous person is not an honest person, honey. They really are not. Their jealousy gives them away. They will not see the proof that you have to give. You cannot be consistent and loving and kind and compassionate enough. And your honesty is what they hate. Their jealousy will not let them see any proof that you have to offer. So go back and view this video again and again and take notes and let me know how this video has helped you. How can I improve this video? I know it might be a little bit long-winded, but you know what? I believe repetition is key. Repeat, repeat, repeat until you know it. So thank you for watching. I hope this video has helped you in some way, as this video has helped me to share with you my own personal examples, my own personal trials of dealing with jealousy. I got out, so can you. And many of others have gotten out clean. Maybe not clean. We don't get out clean, but we get out nonetheless so that we can repair ourselves back and build ourselves back to the people that God needs us to be. You are worthy and you are loved as you are loved because you were created in love. Don't let anybody change that in you. Be blessed.